Yo, what is up, guys, and welcome to Habaneros Hot Takes, where the takes are spicy and the jokes are funny. This is our official podcast. Me and Turner, we're the sports guys. We really love sports. This is our official podcast to let out all those hot takes and opinions that people have on sports. And this is where we really get to vent about what we think about sports in the current, sports world, even the past sports world sometimes, and the future, because this podcast is about all three, and we'll be covering some of the most major topics in the sporting industry, including the big three, as we like to call them, for American sports: basketball, football, and baseball. So, Turner, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know each other more?
I've been a huge sports fan for as long as I can remember. Huge Lakers fan, huge Dodgers fan, Bills fan. I love sports, and I'm very excited to be able to share them here in this podcast.
Awesome. Love that. Me, myself, I'm also a Buffalo Bills fan and a Dodgers fan, but I got a different NBA team than you. I'm a Toronto Raptors guy. Love the Six. Love the guys up there in the North. We the North, baby. Shout out to the Toronto Raptors of Canada. But we are going to try our best to not let biasness get in the way of any decisions we make while, recording this podcast. So, like, if we're talking in a segment about a basketball team, we'll try our best not to be like, oh, the Lakers are the best, or ooh, the Raptors are the best,
I will do my best, although I am very biased sometimes.
It is true. He is very, very biased sometimes. So today on the agenda, we're going to be focusing mainly on basketball, as it is currently the only one of the big three sports that is in season. You could say baseball is almost in season. However, it's spring training, which is much more like their preseason than their in season. So for basketball today, we're going to be asking the questions of what teams that are currently in the playoff picture are actually contenders, and which ones are pretenders? Which ones are those ones that are going to get knocked out of the playoffs faster than Usain Bolt can run a marathon,
Yeah.
And then for football, which is going to be our second subject, we're going to be talking about the free agent running back carousel, where all these guys are going to be fitting in and stuff like that, according to us. This is all hot takes, this is all theoretical, just to, reinstate that this is not actually stuff that's happening. This is what we think will happen. So, and then we're going to move on to baseball, and we're going to give our power rankings for the actual MLB season for like what teams we think we're going to be in the playoffs. We're not going to deal with the bottom teams because, they're the bottom teams. Obviously, there's no need to go over them if they're not going to make the playoffs. There's no need to like go in depth about teams that aren't even going to do anything.
Yeah, man. We all know the Athletics ain't going anywhere.
That is very true, except Las Vegas. So, and then our last thing we're going to cover before we wrap it up is who will have our MVP votes in the MLB season and who will have our Cy Young votes in the MLB season to close today's episode. So starting off with contender versus pretender, we're going to want to start working our way from the bottom and then getting up to the top for that kind of thing.
Let's get it.
So we're going to start with play-in teams, and we're going to say, are these guys contenders or pretenders? Or how far they're going to go in the playoffs? Are they even going to end up making the playoffs at the end of the day?
We'll see.
So our first team is the Lakers, who currently have a 31-28 record and find themselves at the very bottom of the play-in, but not by much. They're tied with the Warriors. What do you think about the Lakers?
Well, this is a tough scenario as a Lakers fan. I want to say I believe in them, but they haven't shown me anything. They can't seem to win against difficult opponents right now, unless LeBron and Anthony Davis are not playing for some reason.
That is true. I have noticed in the limited amount of Lakers games I watched. By the way, I would just like to point out the Lakers are on TV every night. So if you want to watch basketball, you get to see the Lakers a lot. And so they're one of those teams where like I have experience knowing like how they function, who they got, what they're doing, and being in a household full of Lakers fans, that helps too. But I do know they have been playing substantially better without both the superstars. When missing one, it has not been good. It's been pretty ugly. But as they stand now, very bottom of the play-in, which I feel like is a disappointment to the Lakers. Do you think that you would agree with that?
Oh, honestly, we should have easily been one of the top 5-6 teams in the Western Conference. I still think we have the kind of roster that we should be one of those top 5-6 teams in the Western Conference. We just haven't shown that. But here's the thing. Our health has not been there for most of the season. This year, it's not so much as LeBron and Anthony Davis not playing, as much as just our role players. Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Cameron Reddish. Like, we don't have these guys. And if we don't have them, we're not going to beat anybody. We're not going to beat anybody rolling out Max Christie off the bench every night.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're not going to beat a team without role players coming off the bench. Role players are really, really crucial to a organization's success, and that's why I have the Lakers put in the pretender category. Not going to necessarily say I don't think they will make the playoffs, because I do think they're going to make the play-in tournament and maybe even make it out of the play-in tournament. I just don't think they're going to stack up against the elite teams in the West and go far enough to make it to the finals.
And personally, I have them in contender. I saw what they were able to do in last year's run when everybody counted them out when they were struggling and not being able to win games in the first half. This feels very similar to that last year team where they could be a dark horse candidate and make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals again, which is why I still believe they're contenders.
I mean, last year they were really, really good in the playoffs, and they ran through a good Memphis team that everybody thought was going to be the cream of the crop and be there.
Dylan Brooks really beat them, not the Lakers. But
that is true, and he's got to respect them now after they dropped 40 on his head. Just a reminder, Dylan Brooks got too littled by LeBron after punching LeBron in a no-no area. But yeah, I'm just not fully confident in the Lakers' ability to defend Nikola Jokic. I mean, if you watch the Lakers' Western Conference Finals run last year, they got absolutely killed by Jokic.
We also didn't really do anything about trying to get help for these guys during the trade deadline. We did get Spencer Dinwiddie, which was helpful, but they did not make much of a push to try and win this season.
Exactly, and like they acquired a guy that has been below average from three, which is his best spot on the court. So unless Dinwiddie really rounds into shape, I really think that they really just incurred him for no reason. Because if he's going to continue to shoot below average three, what's the point of playing him on the court? Like he's a negative defender night in and night out.
I mean, it feels like he's going to be very similar to maybe Malik Beasley, where he just disappears and doesn't play minutes in the playoffs and is really just a waste of cap space on the team.
That is true. I don't think I would start him over D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves. But anyway, we spent a lot of time on the Lakers there. We got to move on to the Golden State Warriors, who currently sit at 30-27. And I got to say, in my opinion, the Warriors look sweetly prized to knock out of the play-in tournament and into the playoffs at some point. Steph Curry, Podziemski, Kuminga, Wiggins, Draymond. I think they're loaded with talent and definitely have a roster built to go farther up in the standings than they are right now.
You didn't even mention they're supposed to get Chris Paul back.
That is true. They got Chris Paul coming off the bench and Klay coming off the bench. That's some of the deepest guards off the bench I can think of. Like, if you think of Klay in the postseason, you think of his ridiculous shooting numbers, whether good or bad. But if he has good shooting numbers in the postseason, the Warriors are going to find themselves winning a ton of games with a powerful guard-driven offense that dominates opponents.
The Warriors have already proven themselves in the playoffs time and time again. I think that they're a contender and can totally go all the way this year, as long as they can stay healthy.
Yeah, it is completely impossible to say the Warriors are a pretender with how good they have been in previous seasons where people have said they were a pretender. So I do truly think that the record is not what it shows for the Warriors.
They also don't have Jordan Poole holding them back this year, which could be an advantage come the postseason.
That is true. If you think about their first round matchups, it's probably going to be one of the big four, which I won't mention. But I would say that they're poised to beat probably like one or two of the big four. So if they get a good first round matchup against one of the big four, I really do think they can maybe make a push. Western Conference Finals is where I got them going at their max ceiling. Moving on from them, we've got the Dallas Mavericks sitting at 33-25.
So I know we're not supposed to say that every single one of these teams is contender, but when you have an absolute phenom like Luka Doncic, you can never be counted out. That guy can easily take over any game at any time. He is honestly one of the best players in the NBA, should be considered for MVP, and absolutely still makes them a contender. Even if he doesn't gel with Kyrie anyway, he can just take over the game himself. He doesn't need him.
That is true. And Kyrie's there to kind of like pick up the slack for when Luka Doncic isn't having his best games. When Luka Doncic is having an off night, Kyrie's going off in the background. And I think the acquisitions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford at the trade deadline immensely help the Mavericks with what they're doing recently.
I completely agree with that statement.
They had nobody good at the big position for Luka Doncic to throw lobs to, which is one of the best things he's good at. So, like, the acquisition of guys that are good at the big position helps them so much. It's honestly unbelievable.
And Derek Lively, that guy looks like he's going to be real something next to Luca. That guy is a high flyer, and he and Luca can be a total problem for teams in years to come.
I do very much think the Mavericks could be a contender. However, their matchups is going to be very, very dependent. Like if they get matched up against Nikola Jokic, he's going to cook Daniel Gafford.
I'm sorry, Daniel Gafford, but Nikola Jokic is not going to be stopped.
Yeah, I like Daniel Gafford. He was one of my candidates for the dunk contest last year, even though he didn't make it. And, he doesn't look like he'll ever make it because he kind of lost that flair. But I truly do think that, the acquisitions help them right now. But come the postseason, that's going to be an exposed weakness of theirs. And so while I do think they're really good, I think maybe I might have to put them in pretender because I don't see them beating a really good playoff team with a good center.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, and now moving on to the last team in the play-in tournament by half a game. It's the Sacramento Kings, 33-24, seventh seed in the West. What are your thoughts on the Kings?
So I like the Sacramento Kings. I feel like they have a really good roster. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis totally complement each other. However, I still don't think that they can win in a 7-game series against some of the better teams in the Western Conference. I just think Fox is still too young. I know he won Clutch Player of the Year last year, but I just don't think he has enough playoff experience to beat some of those better teams in the West.
I like the Sacramento Kings with an asterisk on it because they're really good at offense. Their defense stinks. And they got guys like, Kevin Herter, an absolute weakness on defense. You've got Keegan Murray. He don't play good defense either. De'Aaron Fox is not the greatest defender. And Sabonis, he's all right for a center. But, you think of that, that's a great offensive for. There's no defense there. And then coming off the bench, they don't really have guys that defend very well either. And like you said, it's just inexperience is another question for them. Will they be able to push past teams that have been there before, know what they're doing, know where they're going? Well, I do think this is one of the more talent-stacked rosters in the NBA. And by the way, I'm just going to mention before we move on, the West is insane. It feels like all 10 teams that are in the playoff conversation could easily go to the Western Conference Finals. It's hard to say any of these guys are pretenders because they're all really good.
Yeah.
But it's really good versus really, really, really good. And that's why I think the Kings are a pretender in my eyes. Moving on to the actual playoffs, the number 6 seed in the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns.
So the Phoenix Suns are good. I mean, when you have a team that has Booker, KD, Nurkic, these guys are loaded. They can absolutely run up anybody in a playoff series. But here's the thing. We've seen them just get cooked in the playoffs.
That is true. Last time Jokic was treating them like they were his horses. It was unbelievable.
Jokic cooked them and Luka cooked them. Can they get over the hump this year? I don't really know.
Yeah, I guess you could say that archetype is really what kills the Suns. The European white guy that, is great at assists, great at the boards, an amazing scorer, just a really well all-rounded offensive prowess. I mean, Luka is Devin Booker's daddy. Let's be honest. There is no way they're going to beat the Mavericks.
And they did add Bradley Beal in the offseason, but is he going to be enough to get them over the hump this year and get them past one of those teams in the West?
I really want to say yes, because their lineup is so star-studded. They have so many good players on their lineup.
What about their bench?
Well, they have Bol off the bench, which automatically grants them, yes, that's a good bench.
Okay, Bol has been a problem recently, but we'll see if he can keep it up.
And they would back up lights-out shooting, like Bradley Beal and Booker and KD, with more lights-out shooting. Grayson Allen leads the league in three-point percentage.
Yeah, how about Grayson Allen this year? Really came out of nowhere, man.
Plus, they got Royce O'Neal at the trade deadline. He's a great two-way player. Their bench is not bad.
Yeah, I know. It looked really bad at the start of the season, though. They actually got some really good under-the-radar players. Good for them.
Yeah. It's the round table of, really, you think about who you wouldn't want to play, and the Suns fall into one of those teams. But then if you're the Mavericks or the Nuggets, they are a team you want to play because historically they have just absolutely decimated the Suns. Can the Suns get around that? I don't know. I mean, they've been really unclutch in the playoffs the last 2 years. So I'm gonna sadly, because I think they're really, really good, say the Suns are a pretending team. Because
Wow.
in a Western Conference stacked with unbelievable talent, I just don't think they have what it takes to get around these other unbelievable talents that they've fallen to multiple times.
If this was the Eastern Conference and the only real competition that I saw for them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals was a couple of teams, I would totally put them in the contender to category.
Dude, if they were in the Eastern Conference, they might be the second seed.
However, they're not in the Eastern Conference. And the amount of talent that I currently see from some of these teams in the Western Conference has to make me put them in pretender, even though I still think they could beat a couple teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they can get to like second round of the playoffs, but then if they have to face any team that, really has their number, it's hard to explain how the Suns lose these kind of games. It's just like they're a good team, but other teams just get them in the playoffs. Like you feel like the Suns would win this matchup. They don't. They just I guess you could say for a lack of a better word, choke in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
All right. Moving on from the Suns, because that was kind of a depressing rant about how sad the Suns are in the playoffs. We got the New Orleans Pelicans at 5. And I got to say, I did not think they would be in the 5 seed right now with the way Zion was playing earlier this year. I mean, he looked like he pulled up to McDonald's after every game. It was not good. But frankly, not the Suns, sorry. The Pelicans have kind of turned it around recently and have, found a little thing they've got going with. Instead of Zion as the primary guy, they've got Brandon Ingram as the primary guy. What do you think about that?
Man, I really like Brandon Ingram. I really wish the Lakers hadn't gotten rid of him because he's a fantastic player, man. And I think that they can totally win a couple playoff series if Zion's willing to perform. I really think it comes down to that. Is Zion going to put enough effort into the playoffs to win a couple games?
If Zion really wants to, he can outmuscle anybody on the offensive side. And then if he hustles, his defense could be way better.
I
Like,
mean, you saw that on their run to getting to the in-season tournament semifinals. Like, he was a dog in some of those games up until that final game.
Zion was balling. He wasn't messing around. He was pushing players around. He was playing good defense. And then in that final game, he was, track jogging up the court with the ball. Like, what change of heart did he have?
I mean, man, he has been getting roasted since then. And if I was him, I'd be using that as fuel to go into the playoffs and go win some games.
Absolutely.
Get that ring, man. You can do it, man. You have plenty of talent.
Like you think about teams with no center, which is really, really rare in the Western Conference right now, but like Chet Holmgren, what are you gonna do to stop Zion Williamson when he comes barreling like a truck into you?
That's a really good point.
That is the only reason I think that Pelicans are contenders is because they have good scoring and they have Zion who can really crush those other centers. Like when it comes to the Nuggets, are they going to beat the Nuggets? Hell no, they're not going to beat the Nuggets. But can they get to the Western Conference Finals if the route is paved the correct way for them? Yeah, I do think so. So I guess I could say the Pelicans are a pretender. Not no, a contender, my bad. All right, moving on to number 4. This is the LA Clippers, and I think this one's controversial because I think, a very different view than what Turner has here.
Okay. So I've never been a believer in the Clippers. I've always hated on the Clippers as a Lakers fan. It's just natural for me. But if I have to be completely honest, I cannot ever consider them a contender until they show me otherwise. They have never done anything to show me that they deserve to be in that top tier of contenders every year. Second round playoff exit. Like, what are they going to do differently this year?
I mean, that is true. And they have assembled a team of guards like James Harden. He's known for disappearing. Russell Westbrook. He's known for not being great in the playoffs. And of course, playoff P. But here's my thought process on the Clippers. Paul George, like all defensive first team caliber guy every single year. Kawhi, all defensive and all offensive, or all NBA, I guess you could say, because that's what that is basically. First team guy every single year. And then you build around that with James Harden, a great facilitator. And then you got guys like Norman Powell, who, in my opinion, might be the best bench guy in the NBA. He does everything well. Terrence Mann, another really good bench guy. And Russell Westbrook coming off the bench is sneaky good. But here's the only problem I have with the Clippers, other than their history of not being good in the playoffs. Eva Zubac and Mason Plumlee. What are they going to do? Like, we've been talking this whole time about teams with weaknesses at center is being the problem. You know, Nocic is not going to stop for I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Ivica Zubac.
Ivica Zubac. Exactly. He's not going to stop for that guy. He's just going to go through him and score. Like, they're so talented at the guard and the forward, but not the center.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But I am going to still label them as a contender. I still think that they could prove me wrong, and I can get past the biasness of always hating on the Clippers.
I strongly think the Clippers need the right path, but if they get it, they can go to the finals, in my opinion.
I still think they would get dominated by Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic in the playoffs just because of their center depth. But you never know, man. Playoffs are the playoffs. Surprising things happen.
That is true. At number 3, we have the Denver Nuggets. And who do I believe in the Denver Nuggets? I just want to say that. They won the finals last year. Jamal Murray was quietly a dog for some reason. I just want to point that out. He was going off every single night in the playoffs, and absolutely no one cared because Nikola Jokic was doing even better.
It definitely wasn't quietly what he was doing. He was having a fantastic playoff run, and Jokic was too, and that's why they were able to win it all. They were able to maintain most of the core pieces from that championship team. I know they lost Bruce Brown. That was a tough loss. They're going to need to find some way to replace him. But boy, oh boy, they are absolutely a contender. You cannot rule out the defending champions.
Yeah, exactly. And unlike some of the other teams on this list, their lineups is basically constructed with no weaknesses. Like Aaron Gordon and Caldwell Pope are around Jokic and Murray. Where are you going to go? Like, who are you going to choose to defend on any given night? You can't double Jokic. You can't double Murray because then, someone else will be open for Jokic. And so, like, if you can't double anyone, you have to go one-on-one with these guys that are absolute dogs and anytime they're on the court can score on you. And that is why I think, in my opinion, the Nuggets are the best team in the Western Conference still. I still think that they will probably make the Western Conference Finals.
I completely agree with that. It would take a really special performance from one of the other teams in order to knock them off. They have the benefit of the doubt as the remaining champions. So somebody's going to have to prove us wrong. But until then, they're what we consider the top tier in the Western Conference.
Yeah, they don't actually sit at the top seed right now, but I still really think that nobody's going to stop them.
They were top seed last year if they didn't need it.
They were the top seed last year, I do believe. No?
Were they?
I'm pretty sure they were the top seed last year.
They might have been.
All right, I'm going to verify this real quick for you guys.
But honestly, if the Nuggets, they would need a really special performance from another team center who could lock down and score on Jokic. There's only a couple of guys in the NBA who I think I could do that. I think you could make the case for Anthony Davis, obviously. And I think, though this isn't just one guy, the tandem of Rudy Gobert plus Karl Anthony Towns, that's scoring and defense. Like, it's going to take a really special team performance to beat the Nuggets, but there's totally teams that can do that.
It's going to take an unbelievable performance to beat them. And by the way, the Nuggets were the 1 seed last year.
Oh, they were?
Yes. All right.
That's right. They went on that huge late season push last year.
They did. They won a ton of games late. Coming in at number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're an interesting team. They have really good pieces. Shout out to Shea. Shea is going crazy. He's been amazing. Ooh, okay, that is for another episode. I'm just going to confirm that. We can make multiple episodes off this. But Shea's been playing great on both sides of the ball for a very young team that has experienced a lot of success. They have 40-plus wins right now and are tied for first.
I love the Thunder. I want them to succeed. They're awesome. I love watching them. They're not on live TV enough. But can they get past not having the playoff experience? That is the one thing that I think is holding them back. Plus, there's going to be a problem with their centers. Chet Holmgren's good. He's going to get bodied by Jokic.
Yeah, he's basically a stick figure, honestly. He's really good, but he's really skinny. And he's not a great post scorer, which is something you think he would be. He's much more of a perimeter-based guy.
Jokic is just going to drop step him on every single play.
Exactly. So I think the lack of playoff experience plus, the center problem probably will provide some sort of problem for them in the playoffs.
I was really disappointed when they did not go spend 18 tradable picks, any of them, on going and getting at least some center depth. Like, you could have gotten anybody you wanted. You could have gotten freaking Anthony Davis. You offer us 17 first-round picks for Anthony Davis. What are we going to say? No.
But what about their rule? You can't trade back-to-back firsts is one of their only problems to being able to get anybody they want.
No, they still have 18 tradable first-round picks.
Still?
Yes.
Something like that. Something like that. This is just a crude estimation of 18 tradable first-round picks.
No, I know for a fact
But
that
it is
18.
a lot of tradable first-round picks.
I know for a fact they have 18 tradable first-round picks.
Well, dang. That's a huge number. Anyway, they do have two obvious weaknesses, but I think they can still beat a lot of teams. And for that reason, I put them in contender. And who knows?
Definitely.
Maybe they'll expose these two weaknesses as not being weaknesses in the playoffs and push for a finals run.
I'm labeling them as contender, but they could very much be pretender. They could easily be knocked out in the first round because of their playoff inexperience. I'm still labeling them as contender, though, because of the amount of talent that roster has.
They've also been on the best heater in the Western Conference, 6 straight wins. But at number 1 right now is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And what do you think about the T-Wolves?
I thought they were done for after Anthony Edwards' scary fall last night. But bro came back into the game. Absolutely insane. Anthony Edwards is a dog, man.
He is a dog. And you said you thought they were done for after Anthony Edwards' injury. I thought they were done for after Rudy Gobert sucked last year. But bro has come back from the dead, and he's going to win DPOY. And he's in tandem with one of the best scoring big men in the NBA. And you got Ant Edwards, and you got Mike Conley for veteran, and you got Jaden McDaniels, who's a good defender.
Lock down.
And Naz Reid off the bench, who is an amazing shooter as a big man as well. So
I have to label them as contenders. They're the best team in the West right now. That's undeniable. They have all the pieces to succeed. But can they get it? Can they get past some playoff woes they've had recently? I mean, last year they had guys punching each other, guys punching walls.
That is true. I forgot about that. They did have guys punching each other last year. And they still play on the same team, too.
Yeah. That's the only reason they lost to the Lakers, man. I think they could have easily beat the Lakers in the play-in last year. They beat themselves last year.
Man, shout out to Kyle Anderson for not having the Jordan Poole effect after he got absolutely destroyed by Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, man.
So yeah,
I still think that this team is a contender. I think that they could prove to be one of the most deadly teams in the West. They have good offense. They have good defense. I just don't see much of a weakness other than their playoff woes. Can they get past it? Is it a problem with their coaching? Maybe. Is it a problem with the players? Maybe. I don't know. They got to find a way to turn it up in the playoffs. If they can do that, they can totally win the West and even win it all.
Yeah, they truly are great. It's just the playoff woes could be a thing, and at times their offense has stuttered, which it's been rare, but it's been there. So can teams with good defenses that aren't as elite as the Timberwolves walk them down? Like the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Pelicans have a decent defense. So maybe those teams could get to them. But I think they will definitely go through their first round matchup with a win. So that's just my thought right now.
Well, let's move on to the Eastern Conference. Who we got first?
The Atlanta Hawks currently sit in 10th. And why do they sit in 10th? Really, why do they sit in 10th? They are talent loaded. Jalen Johnson, DeJounte, Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu, who's one of my favorite players to watch, and Clint Capella. They should be way better than they are.
This is such a disappointing spot for these such talented players to be in. DeJounte is an absolute dog. Trae Young is, in my opinion, top 3 point guard in the league. But I honestly don't know why they're this bad. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that Trae and DeJounte don't play well together. I don't know. Maybe it's the coaching. I don't know. But they just haven't been able to figure it out since they brought in DeJounte Murray, man. They were in the conference finals a couple years ago, man. What happened to that team?
They haven't been anywhere near the conference finals since that. And I want to point out the fact that, yes, it probably is a fit issue with Trae and DeJounte because they're both really good on-ball creators for other stuff. But it also is an issue with their defense. They have the second worst defense in the NBA. So they got to shape up that. Like Trey and DeJounte are both negative defenders at the guard position. And if you're rolling out one at point and one at shooting, I think DeJounte is going to be undersized for a shooting guard. So that's two X's you have right there in a row.
I
But
love the players the Hawks have. I love the talent they have. They're totally a pretender. I don't even think they're going to make it to the play-in tournament. Who's behind them?
Brooklyn and Toronto, and I just want to say Brooklyn's absolutely a pretender. There's
yeah,
no doubt in my
definitely.
mind. I don't think they're going to make the play in. The Raptors have been on a heater, but I still don't think the Raptors are going to do anything, even if they make the play in. Scotty Barnes is super good, but I don't really see them getting in over the Hawks. And they're both.
I see them getting in over the Hawks. The Hawks, they lost Trae Young for 4 weeks. Like, they don't have their superstar. What are they going to do now?
I think you underestimate the loss of Trae Young. Here's my official Habaneros hot takes for this episode. They're going to be better without Trae Young than they were with Trae Young for the time being because they only have one guard commanding the ball now. It's DeJounte. The game's going to run through him, and they're going to use him to score, and, that might be better for them. They've won 2 straight since losing Trae Young.
Okay, I hear you out. I think that definitely could happen. But they're still a pretender. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere this year, but I think next year, if they reassess, they really can be something. And then moving on, number 9 is the Chicago Bulls at 27-31.
Man, the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah. What were they doing at the trade deadline? I would like to establish the fact that they have one of the oldest superstar cores in the NBA with Zach LaVine, who's out for the season, by the way. DeMar DeRozan, who is like, he's coming out of his prime probably, and Vucevic, who's been in their league for a while. And then surrounding them, you have some good players. Kobe White, Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams out for the season. He's good, though.
Patrick Williams is out for the season. Lonzo Ball's out for the season. They have a bunch of talent. They're a good team. They have really good talent. They're not healthy.
Their 2 problems are age and injuries. And they've been plagued by both this year, and it's been devastating to watch. The Chicago Bulls, they probably won't make it out of the play-in tournament. So.
They should totally have had a fire sale at the deadline. They missed out on that opportunity, but...
Yes. There are so many teams in the Western Conference, I think, that would have been looking for Vucevic. Like, if you put Vucevic on the Clippers, instantly the Clippers are like 10 times better.
I know they had a bunch of calls about Andre Drummond just because of his size and weight being able to stop Jokic a bit.
That is true, but they did nothing, and I don't think they're going to do nothing.
And let's not forget, they also had calls about Alex Caruso and Kobe White, who are both good role players. Like, I don't know why they didn't trade anybody. That was some mistake.
Yes. This is the biggest gap in the play-in by a landslide. The Bulls are 19 games back of the first seed, and then the next team up, the Pacers, are 13.5 games up of the first seed. What is your thoughts of the Pacers?
I love the Pacers. They're so fun to watch. But they're a pretender. They just don't have enough experience, man. They're not going to make it all the way. I love Tyrese Halliburton. He's a great player. I love Miles Turner. He's such a talented guy at the center. I don't think people give him enough credit. They have such good young talent, but they don't have the playoff experience. There's just not a way they're going to be able to do much if they make it to the playoffs. I think they're a first-round playoff exit. I think they're able to get out of the play-in tournament, but I don't think they get past that.
I think they're great. They need to continue to build around Tyrese Halliburton and also Benedict Mathurin, who was absolutely going off against my Toronto Raptors. I think it was 2 nights ago. But yeah, he was cooking us. And Miles Turner is good, but the way this team is constructed is to play like ridiculous offense and ridiculously bad defense. And you can't be neutral on like one side is way better than the other in the way the NBA is built today. You have to have a good mix of both. Yeah. And they're inexperienced. And for that reason, I give the Pacers the sticker of disapproval. They're a pretender in my eyes.
I wish they were better. I still think that they are going to be talented 2-3 years down the line. I think Tyrese Halliburton will be a top 10 player in the next 2 years, but they're not ready yet.
Yes, they're not ready yet. Emphasis on the yet. They will be really good in the next few seasons. So now we head into the last team in the Eastern Conference play-in, which is the Orlando Magic, which they confuse me. At times it feels like they're really good, and at times it feels like they're really bad. And it also feels like, at times, they're completely carried by the duo of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero.
Paolo Banchero is amazing. So is Franz Wagner. Outside of that, they're not very good.
Yeah,
no offense to them, but they can't go all the way this year. I like their team. I still think that they're another one of those teams that's set up well for the future. Just they're not ready yet. Just like the Pacers. They're just not there yet.
It's Paolo, it's Franz, and then it is a bunch of mediocre guards and centers and some small forwards. And so you can't surround your star players with mid talent. You have to surround your star players with star talent. And for that reason, plus playoff inexperience, which is a killer for a bunch of teams, I think the Magic are sadly a pretender.
You take Paolo and Franz off the team, they're worse than the Pistons.
That's a bold statement, but I don't disagree with it. Speaking of the Pistons, they're going toe-to-toe with the Wizards right now, and that's a whole nother discussion that can be made. But those two teams are bad.
At this point, it's like you don't want to be that team, man.
Yeah, I subtly got that reference there. Hopefully you guys will too. But all right, moving on. 6th seed, bottom of the playoffs, shockingly. The 76ers.
They've been dropping like crazy since the Joel Embiid injury.
Which makes sense.
And here's the thing. If Joel Embiid disappears in the playoffs again, they're screwed. Because they can't win without him.
This shows exactly what the problem is for the 76ers. This is basically the Sixers in the playoffs is their recent record. Because Joel Embiid has shown time and time again that he's not Nikola Jokic in the playoffs. He just kind of doesn't really, have all that flair and amazing game to him. I think getting rid of Harden helps. But we also haven't seen Tyrese Maxey in the playoffs, so we don't know what he's going to provide for them. And then
love Tyrese Maxey, man. He's so talented.
They've got a decent core surrounding the rest of their guys. Like Tobias Harris isn't bad. Mo Bamba is honestly very underrated. But I really don't think they're going to beat the really, really good teams of the Eastern Conference. And there's also a big four in the Eastern Conference. Well, I guess you could say big three, but I truly don't think the Sixers are beating anybody in the first round. I think they're sadly a pretender.
The question truly is, in the playoffs, can you trust the process?
I don't know that you can. He hasn't shown evidence that you can.
So I'm going to label them as a pretender because, in my opinion, the answer to that question is no.
I agree.
But Joel Embiid could single-handedly carry that team to the NBA Finals, especially in the Eastern Conference right now. I totally think it's possible. And I think we saw him do it for the first half of the season. He carried that team. But will he be able to do it come the playoffs? He's a known playoff choker. I hope he proves us wrong. I think Joel Embiid's extremely talented, although some people just label him as foul merchant. I see him as more than that. I think they can go all the way.
You think they can go all the way?
If Joel Embiid shows up.
Yo, this is Turner's Habanero Hot Take of the episode.
This absolutely is. The only problem is Willie.
There's no way they're going to beat the Celtics. I just want to say that.
I don't know about that, man. We'll see.
Moving on, we have 5, the Miami Heat, and I just want to say off the bat,
you can't count out the Heat.
1, they suck. They are really, really bad at offense. 2, you can literally never count them out because Jimmy Butler turns into Michael Jordan in the playoffs. But if he doesn't, the Heat are absolutely done for. Their offense is so bad. Like, I think they might have the worst. No, that's second. They have the 4th worst offensive rating, not just in the Eastern Conference, not just among playoff teams, in the league.
Bro, Heat culture is a real thing. And part of Heat culture is turning it to another level in the playoffs. I think everybody on their roster knows how to do it, no matter how young or how old they are. I think Jaime Jaquez could totally be a masterful piece for them in the playoffs. I think he can totally make a massive impact on their team. I know Jimmy Butler is going to be going off in the playoffs. They still have Bam Adebayo. He's a great center. People do not give him enough love for the defense that he plays.
That is true. Time and time again, we have seen the Heat play bad in the regular season and then turn the Heat up in the playoffs, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely, man. You can never count the Heat out, and that's why I have to label them as contender. Because if you don't, They're just going to embarrass your take.
This is like the saddest contender tank of all time for me, though, because like I don't feel confident at all picking a team with 110.6 points per game in a league where 115 is standard now.
Yeah, man.
If they can find a way to turn the offense up, they're great. If not, I think I will label them pretender unless Jimmy's getting buckets.
Exactly.
Moving up to 4, we've got the New York Knicks, and this one was a hugely controversial take for some people early in the season, and especially after they got Anunoby and Achiuwa and DiVincenzo. Not DiVincenzo, Malachi Flynn, sorry.
That was just one trade, man. They still got so much more. They got Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's probably one of the best shooters in the NBA. He can create his own shot. He could shoot from the mid-range, the three, the paint. Doesn't really matter. They got Alec Burks, who's another really good player who can pull up off the dribble and create his own shot. Honestly, that was a real fleece job they pulled from the Pistons right there. I don't really know how they pulled that off, but
It's because the Pistons were dumping their age to the Knicks. They want to start building around younger guys.
man, a round of applause to the Knicks GM for pulling that one off.
For pulling all the trades off he did, honestly. He took a Knicks roster that was Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson, and he turned them into something special. Because now we have Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Anunoby, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein. You got Achiuwa coming off the bench. You got Flynn coming off the bench. All kinds of good guys. They have a good team now.
But they're not healthy.
They are not anywhere near healthy, and they have been bad recently because of that unhealthiness.
Man, Julius Randle might need surgery and miss the entire season. They might not even be able to give it a run this year because of their health. They're like a mix between like the Lakers and the Clippers is what I'm going to say right now. They're like the Lakers with their injury situation where I know they could be a better team when they're healthy. And they're also like the Clippers where they're very, very, very unproven in the playoffs. They're known for their choking in recent years. Can they get over that?
That is true. They're missing 3 of their starting players. OG Anunoby, a defensive lockdown center who is a sniper from the corner. I would know. I was watching a lot of his games as a Raptors fan. Julius Randle, arguably their second best player behind Jalen Brunson. A prolific scorer. He can shoot the 3. He can body you up. He's good at that.
You know, you would think from playing with Kobe that he'd have a dog in him. He really doesn't, man. He's got to learn to turn it up in the playoffs, or they're not going to get even far, even if they are healthy.
True. And they're also missing the third piece, which I think is actually the most important piece they're missing, in my opinion, Mitchell Robinson. He is an unbelievable shot protector around the rim.
What was it, like 2 days ago when this team should have lost the Pistons if it weren't for one of the worst calls I've seen in NBA history?
Yeah, that is true. Shout out to Monty Williams for giving us a beautiful moment of him losing his absolute mind. And also shout out to Josh Hart for the clutch bucket, even though it was controversial.
Hey, man, I'm not going to lie. This might be the first time in a couple years we've seen a protest of a game won. Because they're absolutely winning if they protest it.
The Knicks actually protested a game earlier this year. They played against the Rockets. It got overturned today. So,
it did?
Yes. No, not overturned as in like, the game got overturned, but the protest got overturned.
Oh, I see.
Sorry if that caused confusion. All right, moving on, keeping it going. Number 3, Milwaukee Bucks. What's your thought?
Man, the Bucks are confusing. They have all the talent in the world. They have Dame, they have Giannis, which is honestly the best duo in the NBA.
Should be.
If used correctly.
Yes.
Is Doc Rivers going to use them correctly? I don't know. Honestly, why did they fire Adrian Griffin? I still am so confused.
Why did they fire Mike Budenholzer, honestly?
Yeah, man. I think that maybe their coaching decisions are what's holding them back from going and winning another title for Giannis and a title for Dame.
All right, I'm using another hot take button here. They got fleeced in the Damian Lillard deal.
Whoa, that's wild.
They were much better with Drew Holiday because he provided defensive stability. They won their title with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Giannis and Brook Lopez as the core. And with Dame and Middleton and Giannis and Brook Lopez as the core, we have seen them turn into the worst defensive rated team on the entire playoff bracket between any teams in either side.
I honestly think that it's not Drew Holiday's leaving fault. I think the reason their defense has fallen off is just because of the age of some of their starters. Brook Lopez is getting up there. Chris Middleton is getting up there. I just think they're losing their edge when it comes to the age, man. They're not a young team anymore. They don't have that energetic youth on their team.
That is true. They are one of the older teams, and they also have gotten weaker perimeter defensively from losing Drew Holiday. So
Giannis and Dame were the two oldest Eastern Conference All-Stars this year. Did you know that?
I did know that actually.
That's an insane stat. They're the two oldest superstars in the Eastern Conference.
As far as they go, their record shows good numbers. But I feel like the Doc Rivers incident, which quite frankly was a terrible hiring. I like Doc Rivers as a coach in the regular season. In the postseason, not so much.
Doc Rivers proved himself once. It was how many years ago? I was 1 year old when Doc Rivers won a championship.
And
why do you think that translates into today's NBA?
And it was with one of the greatest super teams of all time. You got to consider that too. So I think having him as a coach, having a weakened perimeter defense, and having age, the Bucks seem like a really good pick for a pretender at a high level. They're the third seed in the Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah, man.
I mean, sure, Giannis will probably play really good basketball in the playoffs. Dame will probably play really good basketball in the playoffs. But if it gets to crunch time and they got to defend a guard, who are they going to have defend? Dame or Malik Beasley? Both of which, respectfully, I don't want
Beverly.
them. They traded Patrick Beverly, didn't they? Oh, no, wait. The Sixers traded Patrick Beverly to them. All right.
That's why they brought in Patrick Beverly.
A good addition, but still.
I still don't think he's locking down Jalen Brunson if they need a stop on the last play of the game. But, I mean, he's better than Dame or Malik Beasley at defense. I'll give him that. That was a good addition.
Yeah, but they scare me. I cannot be clicking the pretender button fast enough.
I'm going to say contender just because Dame's a different dog in the clutch.
That is true.
They got to figure something out really soon. I just don't feel like they even know what their own identity is right now at this point in time. I think that if they can find their identity here in the last couple of months before the playoffs, they might be the best team in the Eastern Conference.
That's your hot take button there.
That is another hot take button. I'll give you that.
We need to get an actual button that's like hot take every time we push the button.
Yo, we totally should do that.
That would be totally awesome. But anyway, moving on to the another two team in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland. And I feel like Cleveland has very few and in-between weaknesses, but they're definitely there.
Man, Cleveland is interesting. Donovan Mitchell's really good, but they got destroyed by the Knicks last year.
They did. And I do think that this Cleveland team will learn from getting destroyed from the Knicks, which helps.
And props to Max Strus, by the way. That game winner he had the other night, oh my gosh. Pulling up from beyond half.
Unbelievable. To sink Luka and the Mavs the day before his birthday is just like, wow, what an insult. And he nearly had a 45-point triple-double.
That is honestly one of the most wild buzzer beaters I've seen in my life. So,
same.
Round of applause to Max Strus.
But yeah, I think the Cavs really good build. You know, Darius Garland's a great assister, and Donovan Mitchell is a great scorer on ball. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, great defenders, and Jarrett Allen can kind of shoot.
Evan Mobley might be a problem.
Evan Mobley can't shoot. Evan Mobley cannot shoot the ball.
If he could figure out how to shoot, he'd be one of the best power forwards in the NBA.
Him sitting at power forward does give me confidence in the Cavs to be able to play defense against the best of them. Though, like, he'll be going up against the Julius Randles, the Giannis's, the Jason Tatums, and he's a really decent defender. So I think that gives them the ability to go deep in the playoffs with the knowledge that they have good defenders playing on their high-level talents the other teams have.
I'm going to say that the Cleveland Cavaliers are a contender, but they're going to have to figure out a way to get around Boston or Milwaukee. because those are the powerhouses in the East. If they can't figure out something, some way to tone them down a bit in a playoff series, they're not going to make it much further than the second round.
Yeah. I do agree with Cleveland as a contender and the number one seed in the East and in the NBA, the aforementioned Celtics. You are lying if you say these are a pretender. Well, actually, one of two things. One, you're lying. Two, you're a Lakers fan or are really, really salty about the Celtics.
I really hate the Boston Celtics. I'm a huge Lakers fan, so you got to understand. But I can't even say they're not a contender with a straight face. They're totally a contender. They're arguably the best team in the league. When you list off their players, it's like listing off a super team. Derek White has taken an absolute step up this year. One of the best defenders in the league. Probably should have been an all-star, to be honest.
I think if he's coming off the bench, he's sixth man, and he might win DP. No, not DPOY. That's a little bit too far-fetched.
Is that a hot take?
All defensive first or second team is not out of the question for Derek White, without
For
a
a
doubt.
guard, absolutely, he's going to win all defensive first team if he's on the ballot.
But yeah, you complement his skills of a great perimeter defender with Drew Holiday, who, by the way, also is an all-defensive first team caliber guard.
Yeah, they might have both of the all defensive first team guards, man, which is an insane stat.
Which is crazy, because if you think about it, like, what are the Bucks gonna do if they go up against the Celtics?
Yeah, man, I have no idea.
But yeah, they also complement that great duo of guards with Jaylen Brown, an all-star, a great scorer, and Jason Tatum, an all-star, a great scorer. And Kristaps Porzingis, hot take, a snubbed all-star, a great scorer. So you're surrounding a good perimeter defense with good offensive guys at a bunch of good positions. They have barely lost at home. They've lost one, I repeat, one game to an Eastern Conference opponent in the regular season at home in 2 years.
Man, I'm not going to lie. I was watching the Boston Celtics play earlier this week, and I was just in awe watching Kristaps Porzingis pull up from 25, 26 feet away from the basket. It was insane. That guy can shoot.
He can shoot the lights out on any given day. And so, like, it's the same question of the Nuggets with Jamal Murray and Cadwell Pope, Michael Porter, who we forgot to mention when talking about the Nuggets, by the way.
True, man.
And Jokic. Like, who are you going to guard? Who are you going to guard on the Celtics? Drew Holiday is third in the league in three-point percentage. Porzingis is an absolute dog from three. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. The list goes on and on of players that are going to be completely impossible for defensives to stop. And their defense is so good that offenses are going to struggle to score against them. They are the best team in the NBA by a landslide.
You know who's gonna score on them? You know who's gonna beat them?
Who?
Austin Reeves.
The Lakers aren't making it to the finals.
Bro,
right.
You watched Austin Reeves absolutely torch that team a couple weeks ago.
That was shocking. The Lakers came in there with a passion. But yeah, that is our full list of pretender versus contenders. That took 53 minutes. We went really in depth there about all of that.
Yeah, man. I'm very glad we did.
But yeah, that's going to end our basketball portion of this segment because we have got to move on to other stuff. We are going to move on to baseball because that is our second biggest subject on the list right now. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the power rankings. Who do you think is going to be in the playoffs this year?
Well, there should be an undoubtable number one in the National League.
Yeah. If we start with the National League and we work our way down, the Dodgers.
I'm sorry.
No bias involved. Like, if you look at the numbers and the stats and the rosters, honestly, ain't nobody better than the Dodgers roster. They have a bunch of all-star guys, MVP guys even. Like, they could have the three best vote getters for MVP in Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani this year. And then they've got Yamamoto and a bunch of other, like, Cy Young caliber pitchers.
Man, Shohei and Yamamoto both debuted their spring training this week and both looked absolutely phenomenal. I'm very excited to watch this team this year, especially as a Dodgers fan. And I know a lot of people have been hating on the Dodgers recently because of how good they had of an offseason. It's honestly sad that when I go places, I get clowned for being a Dodgers fan because people are mad that we're better than them.
The Dodgers are really stupid. even if I was like not biased, yeah, it's just completely out of the question that the Dodgers are the best team. And it's also really out of the question who the second best team is. The Braves. The Braves. I mean, did they make the World Series last year?
No, they got eliminated in the NLCS.
Oh yeah, the Diamondbacks.
No, the NLDS. Like the Diamondbacks.
The
What a
Diamondbacks.
Cinderella story last year. Props to them.
Shout out to the Diamondbacks, man. 3-second clap for the Diamondbacks. But yeah,
I really don't want to applaud them,
Braves are
especially
great.
after they swept us. But
Braves are
the
amazing.
Braves are amazing. They're easily going to be the number 2 seed. But the number 3 seed, I feel like, is more up for grabs. Who do you really think is that team? Well, man, I really could not tell you who I think is going to win that division. Is it Milwaukee?
The division in question that you're talking about is the National League Central.
Yeah, man. Is it Milwaukee? Can they do it? Is this their year?
I kind of feel like the Mets should be in that conversation, right? Or the
Mets
Philly.
are in the East. What are you talking about?
Yeah, sorry. My baseball knowledge is not as good as Turner's baseball knowledge. So,
but man, the Central's gonna be. The Central's
gonna be tough, man.
The Central's kind of bad compared to the East and the.
It's
West,
not a bunch. It's not a bunch of good teams. I'll say that much. They got the Tigers. They got the Cardinals. They got the Pirates.
The Tigers are in the AL, Jackson.
Tigers are in the AL. Oh my gosh, my lack of knowledge for
You're
baseball.
rusty
is
on baseball
absolutely
because
showing
it
right
hasn't
now.
been in season for a little while, ain't
Yeah.
ya?
But
It's all good, man.
dude, the Pirates. I'm kind of thinking
The
right now. like,
Pirates.
dude,
There's
they
no
got
way
a
the
young
Pirates are
core.
gonna do
They
that.
got some good guys. I don't know really what to think about them.
In
But
all honesty, I think you have to give it to the Brewers. They're always good on the pitching side. I just feel like, even though they lost Corbin Burns, they're still the best team in that division.
oh wait, the Cubs are in that division.
Ooh, the Cubs.
Dude, the Cubs just got Shota Imanga in free agency and kept their entire core.
Okay, the Cubs would be dangerous, and they're not done spending yet. So
Yeah, they still got money to burn. Like Matt Chapman could very easily be a Cub next week. Jordan Montgomery could easily be a Cub next week. I think the Cubs will win that division.
I completely agree with that fact, actually.
So yeah, that's my NL top 3.
Okay, so what's the wild card gonna look like though? Who are those 3 wild card teams?
The Phillies.
The Phillies are totally a wild card team. They're easily the second best team in the NL East. They could honestly win the NL East depending on how good of a regular season they have. But honestly, they're a playoff team every year.
The Phillies are great. They're not winning over the Braves. They're going to be number 1 wild card.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And number 2, I got the Mets.
The Mets.
They're-
Can they bounce back? They had a really bad season.
I really
last year.
think they can bounce back because like their owner spends too much money and they have too much talent on their roster to not be a contending team. They're really, it feels like they should be really good. I mean, they won't have Pete Alonso yet. They're still working out a deal. Even without,
Pete Alonso, what are you talking about?
they're still working out a deal with him.
No, they're trying to trade him.
My lack of baseball knowledge is showing. But yeah, I really feel like they could be really good this year. They could go pretty far.
And for the third team, I'm pulling out the hot take button.
Let's hear it.
Cincinnati
I love
Reds.
it. I love it so much. Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain. They got a good offense. And the really concerning part's going to be the defense and the pitching. But honestly,
Hunter Green's going to have a great season.
you can be flawed and still make the playoffs if it's as a low seed. You can be flawed and make the playoffs as a high seed. We can see that with some of the more pretending teams in like that NBA even.
Yeah, man. Okay, moving on to the AL.
Number 1 seed in the American League, Texas Rangers. They just won the
I
World
feel like
Series.
1 and 2 can go either way. You're going to have the Rangers and you're going to have the Orioles.
Dude, the Orioles are so scary after getting Corbin
The
Burns.
Orioles were number 1 last year and then added Corbin Burns. I honestly feel bad not putting them in number 1, but I do think the Texas Rangers will take it.
I'm
Fresh off the World Series title.
First of all, they won their division last year, and that was a really good division. The Mariners are good, the Astros are good, and now they get even more free wins because Shohei don't play on the Angels no more.
Yeah, that's true, man. That is a good point. And for the final AL team,
Wait,
AL
hold on.
Central.
What order are you going?
What?
What order are you
This
going?
is 3 seed. We got to do the AL
No,
Central
but
team
like
winner.
who's your 1, who's your 2?
Oh, who's my 1? Who's my 2? Rangers and then Orioles.
Same order. Like Orioles are scary. I don't think they're better than the Rangers though.
Man, I feel like we're forgetting a team. And I know exactly who we're forgetting. The New York Yankees are going to win their division.
New York Yankees.
Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Man, I could not be more excited if I was a Yankees fan for that team this year. They were so disappointing last year, and now they just got one of the best young talents in the sport. If I was a Yankees fan, I would be overjoyed, even though we didn't get as much as the Dodgers got.
Juan Soto on that short porch in Yankee Stadium has got to be an absolute nightmare for anyone pitching to him.
Absolutely.
The one thing I'm really concerned about with the Yankees, because they will be really good, they have to be better than last year, without a doubt. Like, they were terrible last year.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to be better than last year.
But one thing that really scares me is how much work is Aaron Judge going to have to do in that outfield with Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto on his left and right.
Yeah,
he's going to have to be the only good defender out there. And he's not the fastest guy. But if Aaron Judge is going oppo 62 times, the Yankees could finish very easily #1 in the American League.
I feel like the 1, 2, 3 is really up for grabs in the American League between those three teams. I feel like they've really separated themselves as the best in the league, but we shall see. Now, who are your 3 wild card teams?
#1 wild card is probably Houston. I mean, it's pretty hard to pick against Houston.
I really hate the Houston Astros, but they're undoubtedly good. They got Josh Hader, which I'm sure is very exciting. I'm still disappointed the Dodgers didn't get him. But
it's nasty that they're going to have him and that other guy that's their closer or was their closer. I'm not ringing a bell on it.
Presley?
Yeah, Ryan Presley. But yeah, really, they're pretty dangerous. They got great pitching. They've got great hitting. Age might get to them. Bregman and Altuve is still their core, and they've been their core for like a decade now. So I do think age will play a factor there, but
and man, for the last 3, I could flip flop.
It's last 2, yeah.
But I have 3 teams I'm willing to put in here because I feel like this is really up for grabs: the Boston Red Sox, the Minnesota Twins, and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Oh, dude, you're forgetting Toronto and Seattle.
Man, Seattle had a fire sale. Season. I don't trust them.
Seattle did sell a lot of players at the offseason, but it's hard to count against them when they got Robbie Ray, who was a Cy Young, and I still think will have a resurgent season at some point.
I thought they traded him to the Giants.
No, they did not.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't. Turner's gonna fact check that. Well,
sorry, our baseball knowledge is kind of rusty. We haven't been watching much baseball since it's been out of season.
Yeah, I haven't really watched much baseball since October, but Turner's gonna fact check me on that. But I'm just gonna rave about the Mariners real quick. Cal Raleigh's a dog. I would like to assess that. They've got Suarez, who goes yard a lot. They've got Julio Rodriguez, in my opinion, the best stud probably in the MLB as like a youth guy. And they did trade Robbie Ray to the Giants. Turner just showed me that, and so now I look like an idiot. But yeah, okay. I do like the Mariners quite a bit. But
I still think the Mariners are good.
Will they get in over the Twins, the Blue Jays, or the Rays?
I want to give it to the Blue Jays and the Twins. I just feel like they're 2 really good teams. I feel like the Red Sox could make
the Red Sox too, bro. That whole division is so good.
I feel like there's a lot of really good teams that are really going to be fighting for these spots, but I can't hand it to like only 3 wild card teams right now. It's too early.
Who is what? It's the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, and the Rays. That whole division could honestly make the playoffs.
Yeah, man.
If there was enough seeds, but still. Really, really talented division. I think I'm going to go with the Blue Jays because I watched a lot of Blue Jays games last year because they were on live TV a decent amount. Vlad Guerrero's a dog. George Springer, dog. Danny Jansen, quietly, dog. They've got, what's his name? The pitcher guy. Kevin Gausman. That guy is dog. So they've got some dogs surrounded by.
The Blue Jays are really good. I have to give them a playoff spot.
And they've got that guy that was like the best hitter since Babe Ruth when he came up from the minor leagues, Davis Schneider.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
That was fun while it lasted.
He kind of looks like you with his mustache.
He does kind of look like me with a mustache. I know you guys have never seen my face before, but I've got a illustrious, beautiful mustache behind the camera. I do think the Blue Jays will get that, second highest spot. Astros 1, Blue Jays 2, and then it's Twins, Rays, Red Sox, and Mariners that could fight for that 4th spot.
I'm not gonna pick one right now. I think it's too early to call, but honestly, there's a lot of really good teams in the AL who will be fighting for a wild card spot like down the stretch, and don't be shocked if some really good teams end up missing the playoffs just because there's not enough spots for them to get in.
Yeah. Any team that wants to get into the wild card that isn't one of those like 7 teams we listed is going to have to fight, fight their way to any sort of success. Like Guardians, I feel like could be good, but they're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to make that AL. White Sox could be good in my opinion. Gonna have to fight tooth and nail to do anything there. So there's too many good teams, not enough spots on both sides of the bracket. I just realized we left the Diamondbacks off of the playoffs.
Oh, how are we
from
leaving the
last year.
Diamondbacks off the NL playoffs? Our baseball knowledge is so rusty, man.
Who did we have at this last spot? Because they should probably be dropped for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
We had the Mets, the Phillies, and the Reds.
I'm dropping the Reds.
Reds,
I'm sorry.
Reds over Diamondbacks is not something that's gonna happen. So Diamondbacks just made there.
Man, I can't
so.
believe we forgot about the Diamondbacks. We literally complimented them on their postseason run,
Yes,
and then forgot to
we
put them in our
We
playoffs.
forgot about them.
Man, we're so rusty on our baseball knowledge. I promise y'all we'll be better with baseball knowledge after we get back into watching the sport. I'm sorry. It's totally lack of professionalism on our part.
All right, let's remember our standings. Number 1's the Dodgers. Number 2's the Braves.
Number 3 is the Brewers, because you have to have an NL Central team.
That is true. Number 4.
No, it was the Cubs. It was the
yes,
Cubs.
it was the Cubs. Oh my gosh.
We forgot about the Cubs again.
Okay. Number 4 was the Phillies. Number 5 was the Mets, and number 6 was the Diamondbacks.
I would swap the Diamondbacks and Mets, but yes.
Okay. Number 1 in the AL was the Rangers. 2 is the Orioles. Who's 3 again?
The Yankees.
No, it's not the Yankees. It's playing the same division as the Orioles.
Oh, wait, you're right.
Oh my gosh.
Who did we pick? Did we ever pick a team for that division?
It's AL Central.
We never picked a team for that. Oh, we picked the Twins.
We did pick the Twins?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, the Astros. Number 5, the Yankees. Number 6, the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
That's our final list, okay?
Okay.
No matter how much bullcrap we said about other teams because we completely forgot about our MLB knowledge for a little bit, that's our final list. Those
Okay.
are our teams.
We did it. Round of applause for us.
If you guys want to like reference that later, yeah, that we're gonna look really bad once we say some of these teams make the playoffs and then they either suck or they go like all the way.
Yeah,
And there's so many teams in the American League that could make the playoffs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like anybody from the AL East could finish the number 1 seed in the AL East. So
Yeah.
at the same time, anyone from the AL East could suck. So you never
Yep.
know. The Dodgers could be the worst team in the National League.
I would be extremely disappointed.
Yeah, so would I, but you never know. All right, time to move on from baseball. It is time for us to hit the football category. It has been a wild, topsy-turvy offseason filled with all kinds of drama around one position in particular, the running back position. You know, even before we hit the offseason, there was a bunch of drama with like franchise tags and running backs wanting to get paid more, and that's been a thing for years. But there are a lot of guys on the open market now that could really help a bunch of teams, and we're going to be giving our takes on where we think, these guys will go. There's a ton of really good free agent running backs, but there is a very clear and obvious top 5, and we're going to start with my personal favorite, the King, Derrick Henry. Bro has had the greatest prime, maybe for a running back that I have seen in a long time.
He has been really, really good. And honestly, I still think he could keep it up, even though he's getting on in age and he's getting to the point where most running backs seem to fall off in their careers.
That is true. I don't think he's going to go back to Tennessee. So where do you think Derrick Henry will go? How much do you think he'll sign for? How many years do you think it'll be?
Man, it's hard to put a number on running back deals because, you either are getting a bag or you're not. I feel like Derrick Henry is going to go somewhere 2 years, $60 million. I don't really know where, though. It's kind of a tough decision. You got to really think, what team needs a running back?
I mean, at the current state he's at, he's clearly earned the bag. It's just he's a little old.
No, he's definitely not earned the bag because they don't give bags to running backs who are aging. That's just the normal thing in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. But you said he would get paid $30 million a year, which is a ton for a running back.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like all of the running backs are about to get massive amounts of money. I feel like they really have done a fantastic job shifting the idea of how much their position is supposed to get paid. They've really been working for Jonathan Taylor's deal that he was able to sign with the Indianapolis Colts is really going to pave the way for running backs this season.
Yeah, he did sign for a ton. And I would just say Deebo Samuel is like trying to kill that because he's trying to basically say that I'm also a running back. But I agree with you on the 2 years for Derrick Henry. I'm not sure I agree with the 60 million. I don't think a team is going to be willing to cough up that much money unless maybe it's a reuniting with Tennessee. And I think that Derrick Henry wants a ring. He's going to go to a contender. And if you think about a contender that needs a running back, there is no place more apparent than Baltimore, who is already an incredible team who is just lacking a running back. I mean, Lamar, you could make a case that Lamar is basically like a running back,
Yeah,
but
he's kind of a running back.
he scrambles so well. But to add Derrick Henry to that and give like a power bruising rusher who can also run really fast. Like you look at Derrick Henry, he is a huge guy, but he is also super fast.
He's a freak of nature, man.
He's one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. 3-second clap to Derrick Henry. But yeah, I think he'll sign with Baltimore 2 years. I don't think he'll get the bag quite as much as you said he will. I think he'll get $26 million and get a nice even $18 million a year.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I totally like the idea of him going to Baltimore. I think they're a great fit for him. But are they willing to move the pieces to get the cap necessary to bring in a superstar running back like Henry?
That is true. With the reworked salary cap or luxury tax or whatever it was that they reworked, I feel like that might help them quite a bit in that.
It's going to help a ton of teams quite a bit. So hopefully, if the Baltimore Ravens are able to get Derrick Henry, they won't fail us in beating the Chiefs like they did this year because Lamar let the world down this year.
Man, people were out here making edits of Lamar Jackson being the savior of our football lives. And he dropped the ball. Actually, no, he threw the ball. And it got intercepted on multiple occasions.
He threw the ball to the tight end in triple coverage.
Yes, he loves his tight ends in triple coverage. Nobody loves tight ends in triple coverage more than Lamar. If a play is available, it's going to be Lamar scrambling or Lamar throwing to tight ends in triple coverage, and it's somehow working. I have said this for years. I'm not sure I believe in Lamar's passing ability, but that's a full nother thing, and that's honestly a hot take button in itself. But
man, he loves tight ends and triple coverage more than Travis Kelce loves Taylor Swift.
That is a bold statement. That is a really bold statement. He loves it more than Patrick Mahomes loves ketchup. So yeah, moving on and shifting gears from an old power running back. I hate to say that Derrick Henry's old. It pains me to say that. I've grown up watching him for like my whole life. But shifting gears from old power running back to young speedster, Josh Jacobs is probably the most interesting guy on this list because he can fit seamlessly into like any play, any position of like what a team needs.
Antonio Pierce is going to want him back, and Antonio Pierce ain't going to stop at nothing to get him back. Great hiring of a head coach. I can totally see the Raiders, if they can go out and get a piece like Jacobs and then get a quarterback like Cousins. I mean, contender.
Hot take button. But yeah, Jacobs is probably the most interesting running back on the market just because of his youth. And he was the rushing leader not that long ago.
2 seasons ago.
Yeah, yards.
Rushing yards leader, man.
And he was on one 2 years ago. Remember that game against the Seahawks?
Oh my gosh.
That decimated my fantasy football team. I just want to say that much.
LOL.
Yes. But, man, honestly, even teams that aren't contenders might be willing to cough up money for Josh Jacobs just because of how young he is. He's not been in the league for that long. So he has the advantage of youth, and he's still got his fresh legs to him.
3 years. $100 million. He's getting $33 million a year.
$33 million.
And I think he's going back to I almost said Oakland. I'm so used to them playing there. The Las Vegas Raiders.
Here comes a really, really spicy hot take. The Tony Pollard experiment didn't work very well for the Cowboys, in my opinion. I think Josh Jacobs is getting the bag, and he's going to Dallas. But here's an even spicier hot take. Dak Prescott's also getting the bag, coming back to Dallas, And they're going to the NFC Championship next year.
And losing in the playoffs.
And
again.
And losing in the NFC Championship in true Dallas Cowboys fashion. I know that will probably make a lot of people mad here in, southern Texas area, but yeah, I'm just going to say it. Cowboys aren't that good in the playoffs. But I do think Jacobs is really interesting because even contenders with running backs would love to sign Josh Jacobs. So, and even, non-contenders with running backs would still love to sign Josh Jacobs just because of the value he can provide to their team in the future.
Good.
The third best running back available on the market is Saquon Barkley, and he's kind of similar to Josh Jacobs, but he gets hurt more often, and he is a better pass catcher than Josh Jacobs.
Saquon Barkley is the most talented running back on the market, if you ask me. When you account for his skill set and his age, I feel like he is honestly the best available that a team could go out and get, and I think teams are going to see that. And I think he's going to get 37 to 40 million a year. I just think he's going to set absolute record when it comes to a contract for a running back.
40 million. That is a huge number for a running
And
back.
I don't know if that's going to be going back to New York, going to Buffalo. I don't really know. I've heard a lot of rumors, but I could not pinpoint exactly where I think Saquon Barkley will end up.
All I know is I want him to play for a team that's going to actually contend for a title, other than the Chiefs. Anybody but the Chiefs. But yeah, I really think Saquon Barkley could absolutely overhaul the Houston Texans into an immediate championship contender.
Oh, man. The Houston Texans also definitely have the kind of cap space to sign him.
Yeah, they're got a bunch of guys on rookie deals. So if they get Saquon, then he gets to go behind a line that C.J. Stroud was able to work with last year and Devin Singletary was able to work with last year. And Dameon Pierce kind of really he fell off this year.
Man, I'm so sad. I had such high hopes for Dameon Pierce. I drafted him in fantasy and all of my leagues. He let me down.
Yeah, but that is really the only position I can think that the Texans are currently legitimately lacking in is running back. Not that Singletary's bad. As a Bills fan, I know Singletary can be good, but he's not going to provide a solid, really good stat line in every game that he's on the field. And Saquon will do that. So I think he goes to the Texans. I don't think he's going to get $40 million a year because that's kind of insane. But I think they lock him down for a very long time of 4 years for $89 million. So yeah, let me see. We've been through 3 running backs so far. Jacobs, Saquon, Henry.
Those are really the big names when it comes to the running back free agency market.
Yeah. I said there was a big 5. I guess I kind of lied there. There is not really a big 5 of running backs. Is Raheem Mostert a free agent?
No, it's just those big 3.
It's just the big 3.
Well,
Okay.
There might be more after we're done with some franchise tagging, but we'll see.
That is true. And guys like Devin Singletary will be available and some other guys.
I think Joe Mixon's a free agent.
I'm pretty sure he got the bag last year, but
Oh, he might have.
speaking of the Bengals, they recently changed their field to the brand new turf that the MetLife Stadium is. And that's a horrible decision because MetLife has the second highest injury rate of any field in the NFL.
They did the exact opposite of what NFL players have been asking for. They went from a nice field, and now they have the worst turf in the NFL. Just go. I don't know why they haven't changed them all to grass yet. I honestly think the NFLPA just needs to step in and say, yeah, we're making it all grass fields, or else our players are going to keep getting injured. I just don't see how it hasn't happened yet, and I think it'll be coming here in the future. Plus, a ton of stadiums are going to be changing to grass for the Olympics that are coming here soon, and the World Cup.
But yet again, that's for another day. The whole turf versus grass discussion is crazy. Next week, we are going to be out here talking about what player would best suit each NBA team for, prizing them to be a championship contender immediately. It could be any player that's active. And for the MLB, we're going to be talking about the stat lines of spring training and what we're seeing from some guys so far. We're going to be breaking down our MVP and Cy Young cases. And for the NFL, the recent reports just came out for each and every team on what their conditions are for off the field stuff. And we're going to be breaking down the best and the worst teams from that spectrum. And before we say so long, I just wanted to point out, we completely forgot this. It is Luka Doncic's 25th birthday today.
A 3-second clap for Luka Doncic.
He also just completely cooked my Toronto Raptors and took home the dub for his 25th birthday, which is well deserved. So, a little birthday present from the six to you, Luca. So long for now. Both the guys from Habanero Hot Takes say goodbye and thanks for listening to this episode. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Habaneros Hot Takes, where the takes are spicy and the
Jokes
jokes are
are funny.